Hey, this is Kristin.
And this is Aaron. And this is the Drive Mode Show. Today, nice. Today we're going to talk about plug-in family cars.
Okay. Let's talk about it. You just recently had a plug-in vehicle. Tell me about it.
So I just finished a week with the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, so the PHEV. And it's outside of the luxury realm in regular cars. It's the only family-sized, really family-sized plug-in that I've driven that wasn't the Chrysler Pacifica. So I've had the Chrysler Pacifica, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. As far as I know, those are the only really family-sized. The others that I've driven are the Kia Niro EV, the Bolt EV. Both of us have driven that. I've driven the Bmw X5 plug-in, which is a wonderful machine. Until you go to the automated car wash, and then you find out that those really fat tires don't fit in the rails.
BMW problems.
So, I've driven a few now, and there are a lot of points that I think could improve, and there are a lot of things that I think are really awesome. So,
well, let's start with what you really liked.
So I really like that they're taking regular-sized vehicles now and adding good electrification. So going beyond just standard hybrid, which is great, but not next level. You know, with Mitsubishi here, I was with family or anybody else. I was consistently on the freeway getting 37 miles a gallon, but around town I was getting who knows, because I don't think the gas engine kicked in one time. It'll run all electric for about 23, 24 miles, and it runs that up to about 40 miles per hour. So around town, pretty much electric only. I found the same thing in the Chrysler Pacifica, but the Pacifica has a shorter range. So its plug-in electric only range is about 10 miles less. I think it's around 14, 15. I don't remember off the top of my head. So, you know, those little things, though, they really add up, because you think about that Mitsubishi, and the week that I had it, if I hadn't gone on the freeway to do a highway mileage loop, I wouldn't have used more than a gallon of gas. So that's kind of crazy nuts, driving it as an everyday regular vehicle. So what do you think with, you've driven the Pacifica, I know that.
I drove the Pacifica. We took the Pacifica Hybrid to Florida 2 Christmases ago. So before we were even out of Austin, we ran out of EV range. So having the hybrid for the long distance didn't help us a whole lot, but you're right, when you're doing everyday driving, it's really convenient and smart for a lot of families. Mm-hmm. I drove the Mitsubishi PHEV at Heels and Wheels last spring.
Oh, right.
And it was fun. Yeah, it's a sporty little vehicle. But I'm interested to hear what else you think. Tell me more about what you did like.
The other thing I like about the Mitsubishi itself, is that it's more upscale than the other Outlanders in the lineup. It's the one that I had was listed as the GT model, and as far as I know, I think all of the PHEVs are. But and that's based purely on Mitsubishi's output, right? Total power output is how they classify their GT, as I understand it. But it's a very good riding vehicle. Like it rides well, it drives well, it feels nicely balanced. It's not a powerful, fast mover. It's not supposed to be. But it was very confident. I never worried that I wasn't going to be able to get up to speed. I never felt like the transmission was hunting around all the time. Always felt like it knew what it was doing. Those were all really good points with it. I think it's also really good looking. I like the look of the Outlander. The Outlander set the trend that is now the norm in mid-size crossovers. So when the Outlander first came out, at this point it's pretty old. The Outlander's design is 7 or 8 years old at this point. But when it first came out, it was the first new look, right? So it had that upscale kind of BMW Mercedes look to it that now everybody else has followed. So I give Mitsubishi a lot of props for that. After that, it's downers. I think it costs too much. I think it needs improvement on the interior. A lot of stuff is, especially with infotainment, things like that, are very outdated. But I do like all of the vehicle tracking stuff. So between the little driver information screen and the bigger infotainment screen, there's a lot of information you can get if you want to get it. But there's nothing requiring you to get it. So if you don't care about any of that, you can just ignore it. It doesn't force it on you, which is a problem with some other hybrids that I've driven, plug-ins and electrics. It doesn't push it on you. You have to get it. It's 2 button pushes away. I just wish that it had a third row. It's a big deal. You cannot get the third row with the plug-in Outlander. And I wish that it had a lower price tag. I think it's at least $10,000 too expensive. They're really counting on that federal incentive.
So you thought the exterior was nice, but the interior needs improvement. You thought it was overpriced. And overall, you said the ride was pretty good. Did you ever feel like it was underpowered? Because I felt like the non-hybrid was definitely underpowered.
Oh, yeah. The non-hybrid in the 4-cylinder is barely powered. So what I would say is that it's like other vehicles in that class where they're really aiming for fuel efficiency, Nissan Rogue and other vehicles like that, where it's just barely enough power, but it's not enough to give you the confidence that it has enough power. So it can get the job done, but it's not going to feel like it knows it can get the job done. That's kind of the difference there. And Mitsubishi, the Outlander, suffers from that same thing with the base 4-cylinder engine. With the hybrid, though, you're adding something like 60 or so horsepower. So that's why it's called a GT, because it's pushed up to the Outlander with the 6-cylinder engine in it in terms of power output. Okay. So it feels really good to drive, but it doesn't have the sportiness that the GT does. So the standard gasoline Outlander GT has a real sporty feel to it. This does not. I drove the Outlander GT regular gas one last year.
Yeah, me too. And so what kind of driver or what kind of family situation do you think would really appreciate this PHEV?
For the Outlander GT, I would say a family, a small family, 3, maybe 4 at most. It's a 2-row, so it really only seats 4. I mean, you know, all these cars, they say they seat 5, but that middle seat, nobody wants that. So really kind of go with 4. But it will seat 4 very comfortably. The back seats are huge, lots of leg and headroom, lots of space back there. A lot of kudos for that. Cargo space is gigantic because it's the Mitsubishi Outlander designed to have 3 rows without that third row. So you have a lot of space in the back. It's very spacious inside, but it's dated. The layout feels outdated. It's plain. There's a lot of hard plastics. It's relatively loud on the highway compared to what's the norm now. So there are things that are problems inherent to the Outlander regardless of the model, that are mostly related to its age. It just needs to be updated. The Outlander, Mitsubishi itself, but especially the Outlander, has really been aimed as the low-cost family hauling option, trying to compete with crossovers that cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more by coming in as the low ball, and that's been their sales tactic. But now that they're under Nissan ownership and in the alliance with them, and they have access to more resources, I really expect the next year or two the Outlander is going to redesign, and it will be a much better vehicle than it is. Otherwise, Mitsubishi is going to become Suzuki Part 2. They're going to go away.
Oh boy.
In the American market. So they really have to do something.
I saw a Suzuki Sidekick on the road the other day.
Yeah? Nathan Adlin from TFL has one.
It was very popular back in the day.
They are. But we
So,
wanted
Aaron,
to also
if
talk
you
about
had
other
to pick-
family vehicles that plug in, though. And we kind of over-focused on that Mitsubishi, because the little Kia Niro, that was okay for a plug-in for a very small family. And then you were talking about the Pacifica, of course, which is great. But you were also mentioning, before we started recording, we were talking about Rivian. And I want to hear, you have a lot more experience with them than I do. I want to hear about that as a family option.
Well, I got to see the inside. I haven't, obviously nobody's really gotten to drive it yet, but I love the look of it. It's got tons of room, lots of little compartments that are going to be really convenient for families, and it's all electric. It's an all-electric 3-row vehicle, and I think it's going to sell like hotcakes. I mean, the company's been in business now for, I want to say, 10 years. And they're just coming out with their first vehicles, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. But they seem to have a really good team. I talked to a couple other people, and they did, one of their people, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he took their the pickup truck from South America all the way up to North America.
That was a good interview.
And then they set up, yeah. It was really cool. They actually set up electronic charging stations along the way and mapped it all out. So, yeah, I think it's a company that's going to do really well. I'm excited to see how it goes for them.
Yeah. Also, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the Tesla Model Y just started shipping.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's another family option. It's size-wise, it's roughly the same size as a Nissan Rogue, Toyota RAV4. It's in that area of size. It's I think they're just I don't think there's a third row. I'm remembering just a 2-row off the top of my head. That one's going to get a lot of attention sometime in the next week, I think, just because it started shipping. So we're going to start seeing them, and then people are going to start getting a hold of them, and then we're going to start hearing about it. I say that very carefully. Because...
What's the caveat?
the caveat is that means that the pre-orders are what are shipping, and the majority of the pre-orders are Teslarati, which means no matter what, it's going to be the greatest vehicle ever designed and ever made. And all other vehicles bow before it. But it is something that's on the market now, and for the next couple of months, sales figures are going to be very high for it. But like the Model 3, we're going to have to just watch, because the pre-sales numbers, those are always big with Tesla. So for the first few months of shipping, they'll be shipping these huge numbers. But then you have to watch, and like with the Model 3, if you look at the numbers, they have now dropped because the early hype is over, and sometime here they're going to find their even point, and that will be the sales numbers. And we'll see what happens with the Model Y, which is competing in a much more rigorous arena, because two-row crossovers, that is right now one of the hottest ticket items. It's not quite in the size class, the mid-size class, that is the hottest right now, but it's in the next one. So how it competes there will really say a lot about where Tesla's going to go and how well they're going to do getting there. So we'll see. But outside of what everybody else already knows about the Model Y, I don't know anything new. Haven't seen one, haven't driven it.
Same.
So, but like I said, we would be remiss if we ignored it. So we have to bring that one up.
I agree. The last time I drove a Tesla was the P85D, which I loved. I loved the instant torque. I love a lot of things about it. Now, because we're big audio people, and I like to have knobs to turn and different ways to change the audio settings, I didn't like the Tesla setup as much in that way.
Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of putting everything on the screen. So when I see a vehicle that forgoes most of those hard controls and uses a screen in place of it, I'm usually not very happy. I complained about RAM requiring 3 button pushes to heat my seat. I don't think that's a good idea. And sure enough, what did we see in Uconnect 3? Or Uconnect 5, the new Uconnect that's coming out?
Right.
We saw instant one touch. Now you can do all that stuff. They were listening.
Yeah, it's much better. It's much better.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting arena. I would like to see more plugins entering this mainstream vehicle market. Getting outside of the compacts and the subcompacts and the tiny, goofy sized and the weird looking, and move into it's good to see the Kia Niros, it's good to see the Chevy Bolts, it's good to see these vehicles that, even though they're not quite hitting the market I would want them to, at least they look like normal cars.
Yeah, I agree.
So
they're not, yes, I agree. Not to disparage anybody's car shapes, but right. I definitely agree with you.
So, I think that's it, right? The state
that
of
wraps
plugins.
it up, yeah, for today.
So, this has been Aaron.
This has been Kristin.
And this was the Drive Mode Show. Subscribe.
Thanks for watching.